Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 20th edition of The Customer and the Service. I'm your host, Sean Petrowski, with my co-host, John Lemazny. Hello, John.
Hey, everybody. How you doing? What's up, Sean?
Not much. This is a big night. Here we are. We took a little time off. I went on vacation. You were doing some things. And we're here. Here we are tonight on a special night, Wednesday, celebrating our 20th episode. It's a big. I know I've said this once before, but if you had told me, when we started this, we'd be 20 episodes deep, I would have thought you were a crazy man. But here we are.
1/5 of what do you call it when you can put on shows on like TBS?
Syndication. 1/5 of syndic. We're almost there. And this will also be the first new episode to go out on the Stitcher network. We are now
Stitcher.
We are now available on Stitcher. We made the arrangements over the 2-week break we had. So not only are we available on iTunes, Windows Phone, via just a regular RSS feed on any device, but also now on Stitcher Podcast Network. Download the app on Android, iOS, whatever, even WebOS. They have an app, I think. And you can check us out along with a bunch of other great shows. So expanding the horizon that we are covering yet again.
Sweet.
So, John and I, we have episodes sometimes that we talk about things that are a theme, and sometimes we talk about things that are not having anything to do with one another. And this is one of those nights. So, I want to talk about first, I took a trip down to Virginia while we were off. My girlfriend, a good friend of mine by the name of Chris Cordelac, and his wife Dara, the four of us went down to Colonial Williamsburg for about 4 days, and we took a car trip. We went over the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, which was one of the most breathtaking experiences of my life. Driving over that bridge,
wow,
pretty amazing. Being on a bridge for 17 miles and driving over waves crashing below you. One of the most amazing things I've ever seen. And then, spending some time in Virginia, which is a place I really haven't spent much time in a long time. I've spent a lot of time in Richmond as a young child and in Williamsburg one time when I was like 8 or 9, so don't really remember much about those trips. So this was a really great opportunity for me to see what's going on down there. It was Crystal's first visit there. My friend Dara's first time visit there, and my friend Chris hadn't been there since he was 8. So we just were super in tune of like what's going on. And I got to say, incredible customer service experiences all around down there. And we went from all walks of life, from a trendy restaurant to an IHOP to hotel concierge. I mean, everything that we ran into was just excellent, top-notch customer service. I just want to talk about that for a little bit. So one thing, John, that I noticed that's going on down there in Virginia that I have not experienced anywhere else. I've been to other states, go to PA a lot, New York, spend time in New York a lot, spend some time in Delaware. This is never, and any of those places I've been. Florida, I spent a lot of time in Florida, was recently in California too for a good period of time. All those states that I've been to that I just mentioned never experienced anything like this. Every restaurant that we went to in Virginia, John, from the IHOP all the way up to the expensive, trendy restaurant and everything in between, we were asked one question every time that completely floored me, and it's got to start spreading throughout the rest of this nation because we got to get on it. How many checks would you like?
Oh, how many checks would you like?
Would you like 4? Would you like 2? Or would you like 1? Because we're a group of 4, right? Every restaurant we went to, that was the question. How many checks should I break it up into 4, 2, 1? What do you need? Whatever you need, we can do it.
Wow.
Look at you falling out of your chair.
No, I'm just sitting down. That's amazing.
amazing, right? So first of all, couldn't even believe. The first time I was like, it was that we were at the trendy restaurant, right? That's where we went to the first night. And I was like, oh, this is, they're trying to be uppity and high scale, trying to be accommodating. But then the next morning when we went to the IHOP, and the IHOP guy was like, what do you need, like 4 checks? And we are like, no, we just need one, man. That's fine. And then, we went to, even in Colonial Williamsburg, we had a colonial dining experience at one of the taverns there, which was amazing. Even there, they wanted to do it. The Cracker Barrel, they wanted to do. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
That's odd.
Odd? No, it's amazing.
It is amazing, but it's also like that's a little bit of culture shock.
Yeah, but if you think about it, we've kind of touched on this a little bit. People really are not paying for restaurant bills anymore with cash, right?
Yeah, I guess not.
No, everybody's using cards, right? So, I mean, I'm a frequenter of the Hula Hands at lunchtime with my lunch crew, and Hula Hands, we have anytime we go anywhere, like I mentioned on a previous episode, we have Matt, who's the heavy, and Matt will always say, "Listen, we're going to need separate checks," and it's always uncomfortable whenever he asks for it. We always get the separate checks, but you can always tell it's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And some places are really great about it here in the Princeton area, like Cheeseburger. They'll even split appetizers up equally amongst different checks, which is unbelievable. So you get a fraction of the appetizer that you shared with everybody. So that's great. But then you go to places like, we go to Shanghai Park, and they're like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. So to have multiple eating establishments say, we'll break it up, we'll handle as many payment types as you want, was completely amazing.
Wow.
Also down there, it's not, I wouldn't say it's like super southern down there. I wouldn't, like when you're in Georgia or North Carolina, I feel like Virginia, even though people do consider it part of the South, is kind of a mix, especially Williamsburg, which is like a college town because William and Mary's there. But people were just like, everybody that was in a service role was just wonderfully pleasant, very friendly. I know we work in a college town, Princeton, right? But you can't get any more college town than that.
Nope.
I don't think people are falling over themselves to be kind or, with a few exceptions that we've highlighted on this show. But I got to say, like, everybody down there was just incredible, and blown away.
I have spent a lot of time in Virginia.
Yeah.
Mostly because I have family there.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up, basically every Thanksgiving was in Virginia growing up. And then my ex-wife came from Virginia, and we spent a lot of time there, traveling there. It was about 6 hours to where we went. And I never heard that question asked, though. That's a very strange thing. I wonder if that's a relatively new sort of like, I don't know, trend that just hasn't made it, north yet.
I don't know if it was a Williamsburg thing. We unfortunately didn't get to eat anywhere outside of Williamsburg. It's where we were. But was just absolutely amazed by that too. And while we were in Colonial Williamsburg, we spoke to a lot of people there that worked there. Tour guides, people that were working in sales roles, selling souvenirs or handmade. Because a lot of things that are made there, they're made by hand. Jewelry, furniture, clothing, shoes. You can buy them all there, handmade. So we were interfacing with a lot of like not actor types. You know what I mean? The people playing a part. Just people that were there to, conduct business. Basically, everybody's so friendly. Answered every question that we had. Was super polite. Always was curious about where we were coming from. Wanted to know why did we want to come down. That was just real amazing. And even the meal that we had in the tavern there, the waiter that we had was like kind of like this knowledgeable guy about the food. And this is something I wanted to share. Was so we sit down in the tavern, and the napkins that they have at the tavern are literally like 40 inches by 40 inches. Okay, all of our napkins, cloth napkin, 40 by 40.
40 by 40?
It was probably
40
centimeters.
by 40, that's like a blanket, dude.
It was probably centimeters, not inches.
Okay, okay.
So, but that's still way larger than a normal
I
napkin.
mean, a yardstick, a yardstick, that's 36 inches.
Yeah, I know that. It wasn't that big.
That?
They had to be. It had to be. It had to be centimeters.
It must be, must be.
Either way, it was like probably 4 times the size of a normal napkin, a linen napkin. Okay, so we all sit down and we're like, well, why are these napkins so large? Our waiter goes, glad you asked that question, and he proceeds to then tie it around each of our necks. This is the type of napkins that the colonials used because they would wear such ornate outfits, and they only typically owned like one outfit that they would wear every day.
Did you say this was the Mickey Tavern?
No, this was it was the King's Arms Tavern in Colonial Williamsburg. So it was one of the colonial dining experiences. So he, like I said, went around the table tying the napkins around our necks, and our clothes were fully protected, and our seats, our pant legs were. And we were the only people in the restaurant that had this because we were the only people that had this waiter. And it was unbelievable. We had like a good laugh over it, but we also learned something historical about it too,
I love that. Did you take photos?
Yeah, there's photos of us in the napkins, I believe. Yeah, Crystal, I think, has a collage. I'll post it on Facebook if I can find it.
Yeah. Do it.
But we all were in agreement that the giant napkins were like the best thing ever because I don't know. I mean, like I buy these like very large, opulent disposable napkins from IKEA all the time that are like really heavy duty because they like fold out to be super huge and like you wipe yourself like if you have sauce all over your face and you feel like you actually clean yourself. And this was just like the cloth version of that. It was just huge and you felt it was unbelievable. So
I wonder if they had them for sale. Like, did they have a gift shop?
They did have a gift shop but they didn't sell the napkins there. But we did. They were made by an actual restaurant linens company, so we can track them down and find them.
They ought to sell those things. They ought to put the logo on the corner.
You're right.
Call that company. I'm going to call that tavern.
You should call them. So this is just, like I said, another example of great service that we had. We learned like a little bit of history about the food that we were eating, and there was a guy that came in and was playing the fife and the guitar, and it was just all around amazing. And we learned tons of stuff about colonial America. And
was it like a one-man colonial band? Like he had a fife in his mouth, like a Bob Dylan setup, and a guitar around his neck?
No, it wasn't one-man band style, but he kept their guitar around him at all times, and he would bust the fife out, play it, and then go back to the guitar or something. So
crazy. But
we had a great time. We all can't wait to go back. I wouldn't have ever expected us to have that much of an amazing time down there. We spent some time in Jamestown, the first colonial settlement in America. Saw some unbelievable historical relics there. There was a lot of major archaeological discoveries made in 2007. So we got to see a lot of that work. Just incredible. So anybody that's looking for a cheap place to go on maybe a couple weekend getaway, Colonial Williamsburg gets the stamp of approval for me, and you'll be experiencing some really amazing customer and the service while you're down there.
Very nice. Very, very nice.
So, John, you wanted to talk about something radically different than colonial service.
Well, yes and no. I guess the segue is the idea that this is a very colonial way of thinking about food. So I have written about this on my Diary of Calories blog at diaryofcalories.wordpress.com that I've recently joined a CSA. A CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture Program. And there are many. They started in the 60s 60s. I think it started in France. And the idea is this: a farmer who is faced with a season that she does not know what's coming. She doesn't know if the rain is coming, or whether it's going to be overly sunny, or whether it's going to be a drought, or whether it's going to be a freeze, or what. Wants to have some security that they're going to be able to meet their budgetary needs. And if they are faced with the idea of having to sell their crops, that's an overhead that they can't account for until the weather comes. Community-supported agriculture says, if you give us money up front, we will give you a huge discount over the price of the vegetables as they would be if you had to buy them individually and had to suffer the outcomes of weather changes. And so what it means is that you or your family or an organization buys into the share of a crop or series of crops that a farm offers at the outset of the season. As a matter of fact, I've already signed up and I will not see food until June. But I will see food for about 13 weeks. Every week between Friday and Sunday, I'll be able to go and pick it up. And I was able to experience this last season because a friend of mine was going on vacation and he was not going to be able to pick up his share. He said, if you would be willing to go and pick up my share at the CSA, you can have it, because I don't want to see it go to waste and whatever. And I said, yeah, I'd love to. I didn't even know, how to get into it. I didn't know that much about it. I'd heard about CSAs, but I didn't know that they were available to me. Because there is typically a long waiting list to get onto a CSA, because there's a limited number of slots. Usually when they meet the needs of their budget, they stop allowing people to sign up. And what happens is each week you go, and all of the vegetables that they have pulled out of the ground are sitting in bins, and you go and pick them up and you put them in your bag according to a schedule of what you're allowed to have that week, according to your share. And you walk out with vegetables that just came out of the ground, could not be fresher, are often organic or nearly organic. And in fact, my CSA does not use organic methods, but uses something called studied pest control, or ICP. And
Insane Clown Posse?
Yeah, Insane Clown Posse. So what they do is they test the soil for pests and for nutrients and make sure that the soil is healthy and leave it at that, and make sure that there are no pests present. If there are pests present, they usually target that particular pest as opposed to a broad pesticide that would kill everything or endanger humans, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I went there and got more food than anyone could possibly eat in a week. And this was an individual share. And it was radishes and carrots and lettuces and onions and potatoes and tomatoes and flowers, fresh cut flowers. And they have a pick your own program that I could have gone out into the field and picked some strawberries if I wanted them. And apples, and like in 1 week. And every week you show up, and whatever is seasonal, whatever is fresh, whatever is local, not only local, but from that farm, you take home with you because you already paid for it. The price points are, for an individual, it's $300. For a half share, I think it's $600, and for a full share, it's $1,200. And you might say, that's a lot of money, John. But if you compare that with the comparative cost of vegetables in the market that are not local, that are not seasonal, that you are not supporting your locality, your local farms, it is a steal. And for me, as an individual, using an individual share, I would go through my $300 in buying the equivalent in vegetables in about a month.
And you're
And
getting 13 weeks, which is a quarter of a year.
yeah, it's a season.
Right.
And there are many benefits beyond it, especially if you have the mindset that I have, which is I want to support local food, I want to eat seasonally, and I want to eat whole food. Right? So for me, it's magical. It's
Can you explain the concept of a whole food?
Yeah, whole food meaning not processed food. A whole food diet or a whole food nutritional sensibility says that the food should be as close to its natural state as possible when you consume it. So processed food, if you buy potato chips, for example, they are potatoes, yes, and it is oil, yes, but there are usually other things that have happened, such as traveling from a farm to a processing factory, from the factory to a storage facility, from the storage facility to your store, and all of that costs money. The brand and packaging costs money. The additives are not natural, not whole foods, as opposed to taking a potato out of the ground out back, slicing it up, putting it in your pan, and making your own chips. The whole foods philosophy says that you will be healthier because you are closer to the natural state of the food. And you can still have chips, but the idea with Whole Foods is that you make the chips, or that you watch somebody make the chips from potatoes. It's best when you do it yourself because you control the entire process. And it's best when it's organic because there's no pesticides involved. And it's best when it's local because you're supporting your local economy and your local farmer. And there are a slew of things that fall into place. If I could ride my bike to the CSA, it would have a zero carbon emissions footprint, for example, for me to eat. If I just choose food from the CSA, which I'm going to try to do as an experiment. And this farm also has live chickens that give them eggs, and it has quails that give them eggs, and it has chickens that give them chicken meat, and it has a whole bunch of other things that lead to a even for a non-vegetarian, a well-rounded diet where you can get all of the nutrients, protein, carbohydrates, and fats that you need from your local farm.
Just let me ask another question.
You can ask all the questions you like.
A quail egg. Why would someone want a quail egg over a chicken egg?
Well, it's a different flavor, a different texture. It's like the same reason that you might have veal or venison rather than beef.
The reason I asked that question is while we were on our Colonial Williamsburg trip, we were met with a historical interpreter who was the cook for the governor's mansion in Colonial Williamsburg. And we learned about, in colonial times, the reliance upon goose eggs. And the reason for that was because one goose egg was equivalent to basically like 6 to 8 chicken eggs.
Right.
And so so he was talking about how, you know, it was from like an animal kind of footprint. One goose would give you an egg that would require 6 chickens, if you will, or a chicken to lay 6 eggs. And that was something that kind of amazed us because you don't ever hear about goose eggs. Like, you can't even go buy a goose egg.
But like, you have to go to a specialty market, or you have to go to someplace where it's like it's done, and it's not done very often. And this begins to speak to the diversity of crops. Another thing that they can do at a CSA that they cannot do at your local Stop and Shop very easily is to have a non-monocrop variety. And monocrops are popular because what happens is a farmer finds a crop that everybody wants, like the russet potato, that's bought by the ton by McDonald's. And so they make russet potatoes again and again and again and again and again. The problem is that you begin to have pests that just attack that potato,
Right.
and you endanger the entire crop. Plus, the things that you do to the potato in order to resist pests and other dangers to the crop often add things to our food stream that we did not intend.
Also, too, by being monocrop, by not doing crop rotation, that crop is just continually pulling those same minerals out of the soil each time. Whereas if you use crop rotation, you're allowing those minerals to replenish while other minerals are being used by a different crop.
Right. And there's an argument for the variety of crops in general, because not only do you, by not pursuing a monocrop, you begin to introduce resistance to pests, and resistance because a pest comes, finds a crop, might get interested in it for one season, but it doesn't find a home in that crop because the crop changes.
Right.
If it's not a monocrop. If it is a monocrop, those pests know exactly where it is all the time, and they just keep coming back to it again and again and again.
Right.
And start to resist the treatments for those crops, for those pests. So, but not to mention that our nutrition is imbalanced because with monocrops, and the idea that, in Peru, there are thousands of varieties of potatoes, and we typically see about 6 of them. We see the red bliss, and we see a russet, and we see a white potato, and maybe a purple potato. But the idea of heirlooming or varieties is very minimized in our food culture because it is not cost effective for most farmers to not monocrop. It's most cost effective for them to make one thing and make it again and again and again. CSAs are able to throw all that out and do some experimentation and some variety. And the other thing about the CSA is I end up with vegetables, because I agreed to, I end up with vegetables that I never would have bought. In other words, they're not vegetables I would have chosen, but because it's in my bag, it forces me to look at this thing and say, I don't know what this is, I don't know how to cook it, I'm going to go find out. Plus it adds variety to my diet because I'm sort of introducing a new food, sort of surprising myself by introducing this new food. So rather than throwing it out or not picking it up because I don't understand it, don't know anything about it, I go and do research and I say, I've cooked bok choy, but I've never seen this particular cabbage before. What do I do with it? Does it go well with soy sauce? Does it, need more salt or less salt? Does it need to be prepared in some way in order for it to be edible? And I'm really excited for that because I'm at that stage in my nutritional growth where I want variety. I don't want to keep eating the same things. And I already eat quite a variety now, but it's a variety within the context of our social construct for food, which is very limited. Bananas are the same thing. And bananas are never going to be local. I'm never going to have bananas from this farm. But it's very likely if the pestilence that is attacking bananas in South America continues on the path that it is, we're going to have to introduce new varieties of bananas because the ones that we have are so targeted by pests and so endangered by the monocrop way of thinking. As a matter of fact, there's a documentary on Netflix called Bananas with an exclamation point that talks about the Dole Company and the lawsuits that they had to defend against from workers who were sprayed with a particular pesticide, I think it's called BHT, that made them sterile. And many of the workers lost the case. And Dole said that they explained to the workers that they should stay away from the spray. Meanwhile, they were living in huts on the farm while it was being sprayed. It's amazing.
Yeah,
Like
I'm
you,
gonna check that out. That sounds very interesting.
yeah. I've been watching a lot of food documentaries on Netflix recently, and it's really altered the way that I think about food in very strong ways. And I'm very excited about the CSA. So incidentally, the CSA that I belong to now is the Griggstown Quail Farm CSA. It is just north of Princeton, and they have a great group of people there. As a matter of fact, many CSAs also employ CSA members in order to get a discount on the CSA share. So you can do some sort of a work share where you're able to reduce the cost of the share by going and picking crops or going and doing work at the farm. And they also are really renowned for their chicken salad and their fresh eggs and their um, pot pies they do there. So it's a very exciting opportunity for me, and I'm sure that I will talk about it again. But I wanted to give them a shout out because the waiting list that I talked about before, they have reduced quite a bit. Oh, and the other thing that they have changed recently, speaking of customer service again, is that instead of you going and picking out your own vegetables from bins as you walk around, they're going to do an equity share and box it for you.
That's
So
awesome.
you'll walk in, your share will be waiting for you. You'll just pick it up, put it in your car, and go.
Are they still accepting?
They are indeed.
Because I think Crystal probably would want to get on that. I'm going to talk to her about that right after we finish tonight's episode.
Yeah, you should check out their website. It's griggstownquailfarm.com.
Awesome.
And I am actually working with them right now, just as full disclosure, on maybe giving them a way to do credit card processing on their site. So right now you have to actually go to the farm, which I would recommend anyway if you're going to be going there every week, because for you it would be a little bit of a hike, not so much from work, but from home. And so to understand that it might take 15 minutes to get there, but it's so worth that 15 minutes. But at the very rate, at any rate, I am trying to help them to make it easier for people to sign up for their share.
Well, that sounds like a really amazing group. We keep talking about things. Like I said, I've spent past 13 years here in Mercer County. I don't know how long you've lived here in Mercer County, but just when you think you know it all, that you hear about organizations like this and the other organizations we talk about each week, and it's just amazing what's going on here. Absolutely amazing stuff going on.
I agree completely. I always learn things from our podcast, and I'm sure that other people do too.
Well, just another reason to be grateful for living in Mercer County, if you ask me.
Absolutely. We have a lot of great resources here. We're very fortunate.
Anything else you want to mention before we call it a night?
I have one more thing to mention.
Okay.
I recently changed employment. I'm no longer at the beloved Princeton University for various reasons, which I won't go into here. But it was an amicable parting for the most part, and I wished them well, and they wished me well. I do want to say that instead of my academic technology employment, I am moving to focus more intensely on Bye.
Hello.
Oh, you there?
Yeah, what happened?
I don't know. The connectivity went down a bit.
Okay.
I'm hoping that it's okay now. But
Yeah, okay. Do you want to say that again?
I think it actually recorded on my side. I'm not really sure. But basically, if you're interested in technology consulting or graphic design, go to lamazny.com or visit facebook.com/Lamazny Consulting. And I really appreciate your support in business.
Well, I was sad to hear you leave another employer that we both worked together for. This will be the first time that we haven't been together under the same roof. But
Together under this roof.
It's true. We are under the Google Hangouts roof, the customer and the service roof.
Right.
So I wish you the best, and you have my full support in anything that you do.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that, and I did know that. In fact, you're a very good friend.
I'm glad to hear that. I have to just say, we've talked about it before. My smartwatch arrived today, my Martian smartwatch, literally just a few hours ago. So I haven't really put it through its paces. So I'm sure we will have a customer in the service where we'll talk about smartwatches, and so I'm looking forward to that. And that I'm hearing all kinds of chimes and all kinds.
I got an alarm going.
All right.
I figured we were.
All right. So let us. I think that's probably our cue to wrap it up. So until next week, John.
Until next week, Sean. Thank you so much.
All right. Talk to you soon.